So either they have to dig into equity of homes they have or borrow money, sometimes second mortgages.
At the time when the client purchased the pre-con, the builders sold it to them at a certain value for that moment, like per square footage.
Yeah.
But after a while, once it closes, that's not necessarily
Yeah,
the
what it's
actual price per square footage. And the banks see that, the appraiser, they see that, and sometimes they don't want to give out, the mortgages because of that. Because they say, no, this property is not valued at the time. It's not, that was before. And the valuations are sometimes and sometimes the clients, they have issues with closing, depending on, type of builders and type of projects and so on.
But do you have any other questions? Anything that, is always a question for you guys when it comes to real estate lawyers and why they act certain ways or don't do what you want them to do?
Okay, so I kept the topic of this training is that when the deal is funded, when your client's deal is funded, what happens after that?
So are we talking about when the bank has released the money?
Yes.
Okay, so once the bank has released the money, prior to that, we have to advise a client of the list of debts, if any, that have to be paid from our trust account. Sometimes we have mortgages, sometimes it's car loans, student loans, credit cards, lines of credit. Obviously, we have transactions where the funds that we have to pay exceed the amount of the mortgage. At that time, that's when the clients and the brokers and us would have to come to some sort of an understanding, either to amend the instructions or have the clients pay those themselves. So we satisfy the bank's condition. And once we get the money from the bank, we will have to first register the mortgage. We cannot touch those monies unless it's a purchase file. We cannot touch those monies unless it's registered. So let's deal with the refinance part. When it's a refinance, we register, we release the money. First, we pay off any debts, then any fees, so broker fees, legal fees, and then the rest will go to the client. Now, for purchase files, we do have an exemption where we can release the money prior to registration because the money has to go into the vendor's lawyer's trust account. They are not allowed to release until we have registered. So once the registration is done, then we can proceed with sending a reporting package to the clients that would outline what happened in the transaction. The reporting is important to protect not only the brokers involved, but also us as lawyers. So, because people tend to have very short-term memory. So this way, the reporting will tie them down to what happened in the transaction.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also send a reporting to the bank.
Right, thank you.
Yeah. Any other questions?
And usually for this entire process, regardless of how complicated it is, what is the maximum time frame that it would take to complete for the one day?
Well, to be completely honest with you, once we get the instructions, we finish the file right away based on the funding date. Doesn't matter how complicated it is because we understand the amount of work that has gone into the file. And sometimes if we don't close it once we get instructions, let's say I get instructions today, the bank wants to fund this on Tuesday. If the lawyer is not able to close it by Tuesday, so 2 business days, sometimes the bank might re-instruct, re-look at the file. So that is why it's very important for lawyers that once we get the instructions, even if it's next business day, give that file priority. You don't want the bank to take a second look at that. Sometimes that happens with BMO. Once BMO sends instructions, if the lawyer doesn't request for funds right away, the file could get reviewed again. So we always send requests for funds and close right away. Obviously, we do have transactions where with B lenders, sometimes you have the file getting simultaneous, you have solicitor condition, broker conditions. Sometimes if certain broken conditions are not met, the file is gonna get delayed. We always try to avoid that. That is why for the future, whenever you work with a lawyer, please try to have very open communications with the lawyer. Try to become friends with the lawyer. So you can pick up the phone and say, listen, this deal, this is what you have to do. So I'm protected on my end and the file gets completed on my end. The number one downfall of these sorts of transactions is when the broker and lawyer are not communicating.
Mm-hmm.
That is to your detriment. Believe me, as hard as it is sometimes to get a hold of lawyers, text them, send them an email, have them call you, become friends with them. When you do, they're looking out for you and you're looking out for them. That's how I am with all my brokers. We're on first name basis. we're friends, we always look out for each other, and you build a trust, because some deals you really want to have the lawyer on your side, and vice versa. So that's my advice. And we're not that mean or annoying. We're actually very reasonable.
No, basically, one thing I realized that when any work is very logic-based, that is their job, and it definitely has a meaningful and a mean also we can, because we cannot, there's no gray area in there,
Mhm.
right? If the banks are telling, a lender is telling to lawyer that this certain conditions has to be, met,
Dated,
they
yeah.
have to,
Yes.
right? So that's why I like that, to be a friend with the lawyer office team.
Yeah.
And any questions, you can email them, because that will increase your knowledge. Exactly.
And sometimes bear in mind that the way you present a file to the bank, if you don't describe that to the lawyer can say something that is contradicting that.
Mhm.
That has happened when brokers and lawyers don't communicate. For instance, two people, you represent them as common law, and then the lawyer says, but they're single. That jeopardizes the deal in banks' eyes, especially when it comes to B lenders. So that is why I'm saying, when you send a file to a lawyer, have an email, these are the clients, introduce the clients, and then communicate with the lawyer. So the lawyer doesn't do anything. Not that we're trying to hide anything. That's not what we're doing. We're just communicating so we're all on the same page. That's very important.
And that's the final stage, because sometimes we are happy when we get a client, and after that we get more happy when we get approval, and we get slow with it. Now the time is to be finish the file,
Yeah.
finish the conditions first.
Yeah.
And after that, the file is ready for a lawyer, for law
Yeah.
office. And then don't stop there. Communication.
Yeah.
The instructions received, any
Yeah.
special conditions, what I can play a role is clients calling you back or not. Sometimes the lawyer office calling your client, and client is not responding back for 3-4 days.
Yeah, or sometimes you ask the client something and their response is, ask my broker.
Yeah,
So,
that's true.
which is the truth, which I don't blame the clients, because you guys have a longer relationship with them. So they're more comfortable with you and they're kind of scared. The funniest thing is we have to do ID verification, where we have to ask the clients like what their employment is, where they work. Whenever I get to that page, the client's like, I'm gonna be right back. And like they call the broker. What did you tell the bank? So that's why it's
So-
important.
Be ready with that information and give her upfront.
Yeah.
That's what I like to do.
Yeah.
Especially. I just want to share one a case that you guys are some of them pretty new. 4 people on the title, and a brother and sister want to come out of the title, and mother and another sister will stay on the title. It's a refinance. So in that case, the first thing you contact before you submit the file, contact the lawyer.
Mhm.
Why? Because whenever anybody is going in the title, new person or exiting from the title, there is a independent legal advice.
Yeah.
So those 2 people need to hire a lawyer and provide an independent. Right?
Yeah.
The lawyer will say, okay, my clients are agreed to take their name out, so that is authentic. When the client is saying to us, it's not authentic.
Mhm.
So this is special, circumstances I talk about.
100%, and that's very
Yeah.
correct, because then you have an issue, going back to what you said about clients who are married.
Mhm.
Legally, we would have to get consenting spouse consent if it's anyone's matrimonial home. So that is why sometimes there are delays. So you would have the file instructed. Obviously, the lawyer has no idea who's who, and then the lawyer is going to have to tell the broker, well, we need like 2 other lawyers for ILA, and that is what causes a delay. Go ahead.
So sorry.
No, of course.
I have one special case, like what he said. It is not, but other than taking it out of the title, it is adding into the title.
Okay.
So I had one client asking, advisory bought a house, and when he was buying a second house, by the way, all these happened like 5-7 years ago. Okay, even the second house, while he was buying it, he wanted to sell the first house, but the siblings didn't allow him to do. So instead of why do you want to sell it? Instead of selling it, we will chip in $100,000 more
Yeah.
dollars from the
Buy 'em
siblings,
out.
$200,000 for the primary house. Okay, not for the subject property at that time. for the already purchased property, but they didn't add their names in the title at that time. Okay. Now, after this capital gains tax has come into effect, because this guy bought this primary house for like what, $450 or $500,000. Now the property is valued close to $1 million.
Yeah.
So, but just because the capital gains tax is, coming up, so now these siblings who gave the money want to be added into that primary house title. So, is it anything that that we can do in the middle? Say, for example, even before a mortgage renewal comes up, or even
Yes.
before a
So in those situations, what we would advise clients to do is to draft a trust agreement. A trust agreement, we're not going to backdate it. We're going to do it effective of today's date. But we're going to say that these two brothers invested X amount of money, and therefore this person who's always been on title is theoretically holding shares in trust for the benefit of the people who have added equity to the property. This will protect the people whose money is in the property but who are not on title. Now, when you give him or her that advice, what I would also add is just make sure to protect yourself and say, regardless, speak to an accountant. Because trust agreements and beneficiaries and all of those things, depending on the person's specific situation, might have some tax implications for down the road.
taxes, I mean, trust if I'm not
Other than
wrong.
capital gains, just other taxes, tax implications down the road. I don't know about you guys, but I always say I'm not an accountant. Get your own accountant to review the transaction when it comes to trust agreements, just because it's going to protect you as well down the road.
The living trust usually needs to get dissolved in 21 years from the date of forming, and but regardless of it being formed, it is just deferring the taxes. If I'm not
Yes,
wrong.
and it's something that is going to protect the two people who've invested monies in the event that the person who's on title ends up getting married, and that becomes their matrimonial home. So what happens to the shares of the people who invested but are not on title? And sometimes in the unfortunate event of someone passing away, it's going to protect them as well. So that's my number one advice to someone if they were to come to me asking me what to do in that situation. That would resolve the problem. And you can get a trust agreement registered on title. And if you do it based on a trust agreement, so let's say in a couple months they want to use the trust agreement and actually do a title transfer where they put their names on the title, they wouldn't have to pay any land transfer tax. Yeah.
And I think so lender's acceptance also required to adding someone or removing from the title. I think so that's a lender's always condition, right?
Sorry, sir.
Lender's condition, because lender has to agree to add someone or
yes,
remove
yes.
someone from the title.
I mean, are they doing a refinance or are they just doing this for the time
No,
being?
but, no refinance, nothing.
Okay,
Just for the.
So what we would do is we've had similar cases where we've added people based on a trust agreement. As long as it's not the lawyer who represented the bank initially, they can do it. But the lawyer who initially did the first mortgage that's on the property, they cannot do this. And again, when it comes to the legal side, when we get the client to sign our paperwork, we always say, listen, you can technically be in breach of your mortgage conditions and terms, but however we're doing it, you do it at your own risk. Based on my experience, if a mortgage has been registered for 2-3 years, banks do not tend to pull parcels. I know that community trust, for instance, they do pull parcels within the first year, especially if it comes for renewal. I've had clients, calling me in a panic. You did our closing. This is a letter from, I don't know, community trust. I look at the letter. It says, we've been notified you have a second mortgage. So that's when I tell the client, like, delete the email. We never talked. Like, I don't know anything you just said to me.
They actually blacklist lots of brokers too.
Yes.
So they do within 10 days after closing. Within 10 days, they do a title search. If there's any second mortgage registered on it, so the person who submit the file is done with them.
Yes, if there's a
It's
pattern.
not a disclosure because the second mortgage was used to put it consider as a down payment.
Yeah.
Yes, that's it.
I had RFA Bank pull the parcel 5 months after we did the transaction. 5 months after they pulled the parcel. And so it's kind of difficult with the B side. They have a lot of obstacles, but it's part of the job. It's part of the job. Scotia never cared. Scotia never cares.
So, major bank doesn't care much.
Yeah.
Unless there is a complaint.
Yes.
Otherwise, they
Yes.
don't care much.
Yes.
Yeah, they don't want to be, put their reputation in the
Yes.
Relationship.
yeah,
Yes.
themselves,
Okay, so we saw some cases recently where a person bought the house from a builder. The house value came less.
Mhm.
Okay, we were doing the mortgage, and like the builder actually, I would say, he tried that the appraisal could not happen 1 or 2 days before the closing.
Yes.
So when that thing happened, for some reasons, client could not close. Okay. Now, for some of the agents, like actually, when it goes to understanding what is a real estate lawyer and what is a litigation lawyer, so how the role is different.
Okay.
Can you please explain that?
Okay, so number one thing about builders deals, I don't know if a lot of you guys are handling that right now, but if you suspect that there's not going to be enough money prior to the closing, let the client know to reach out to their lawyer, because I've had instances where you're right, bank valuation did not come. And believe me when I say this, builders are very cooperative when it comes to that. I've had builders offer to give VTB loans. I've even had builders reduce the purchase price to be able to close, because builders know, they know that they will not be able to sell the unit for the price that they want in this market. So I've had those instances. Obviously, the VTB one, I was in conflict. I don't know what happened there. But with the price reduction, we actually did it. They reduced it by about 75K.
Wow.
So let the client know and make sure that they communicate with the lawyer, and the lawyer gets in touch with the builder's lawyers. Now, when it gets to a point where you feel like an extension might help, maybe the client can go ask their, I don't know, family
Friends or
members, friends, ask for an extension. Sometimes we were able to get extensions, especially in around September, where it was really bad. We were able to get extensions for 2 months, 3 months on closings. So do that. That's also another option for your clients. Now, if it gets really bad, where the builder's not willing to offer VTB, not willing to offer any price reduction or any extension, when it comes for litigation, yes, your clients can raise those issues and say, listen, the builder's not cooperative, look at the market conditions, look at the appraisal, blah, blah, blah. However, the builder's defense is always the APS. You signed an APS.
Yeah.
I could have sold this to you for $5 million. You had a 10-day grace period where you could have thought about it. Why didn't you? That is a defense. Now, obviously, builders don't like that. They don't like to have that sort of a reputation, because on their end, if there's multiple lawsuits against them, then obviously it's going to affect their profitability down the road. So they don't want to have that reputation. So believe me, builders will try to avoid litigation. The only time where I've had a builder say terminated, we're suing for the deposit, we're gonna forfeit everything, was when after 6 months of delay, my client kept on asking for extensions. My client was not able to close. So builders do give a lot of options. And in your particular case, what do you want to give me some more details, or is that going to answer?
Okay,
did I answer your question?
The appraisal happened 1 day before, the value
Yeah.
came less, and builder already knew that the value will
Yes.
come. In fact, the value came more, not less. So the value came way more than the purchase price.
Yes.
The house was purchased in the year 2016. So definitely the value was more now. It was closed now
Yes.
recently. So the value came more, but then because of the appraisal delay, the lender sent the funds. They actually could not send the funds on the same day. Okay, so the lawyer asked for 1 day extension, but builder didn't give the extension. Okay, now in that case, the
That's
real estate lawyer will help, or it will go to litigation.
No, that's unreasonable. Buyers always have a right of redemption up to 7 business days. So if a builder is saying we're not giving an extension, the lawyer needs to really fight. The purchaser has a right of redemption. That means if my closing is today and I don't close today, the seller cannot just go ahead and list the property tomorrow. I do have a right of redemption. I have the right to take back what I initially contracted for. That is something a lot of lawyers do not use, and it's something that any lawyer that says otherwise, I will argue with them, because I have used the right of redemption in order to claim back when my client wasn't able to get funds on time. That is something the lawyer should definitely bring up with the builders. Who were the builders' lawyers?
Okay, so that we can discuss later on.
I am so curious.
Right, so that's one
The
case.
client lost the property.
The client lost the property, yeah.
Because the builder said
They will have a very strong case
your
against the
property
builder.
is too good to lose.
They will have a very strong claim against
Yeah.
the builder in that case where they did not grant
The
them a right
7
of
days
redemption.
clause, I was not even aware of that.
Yeah, you do have a right of redemption. We have used this numerous times, and the builder has to be reasonable. You want a 1 day's extension? My terms are $1,500 extra.
Yeah.
That's
In
Somewhat
fact, that's
reasonable.
what we were expecting.
So let's
Maybe the
do
builder
that.
wants 5,000 extra, 10,000 extra, that's fine because.
no,
Yeah,
I would be very suspicious of what happened.
Right, now another case, in the other case, the property value came less, okay? And the builder is not buzzing, okay? Now, the person arranged the funds, requested for the extension, the builder actually gave first extension for 2 days. The client could not arrange the funds for next 2 days, but then after that, when he arranged the funds third day, he contacted the builder that I have got the funds and I want to close, and builder is not buzzing. What would you do in that case?
I would just continue harassing the builder's lawyers. I would tell them that we're sending the funds. You have to release the transfer.
Because it's also within 7 days.
You have to release the
Yeah.
transfer.
Oh, okay.
That's what I would do. I would say we're sending you the funds. You have to
Okay,
release the
they said
transfer.
don't send the funds.
So what happens after
They
7
said
days?
they-
After
they
7
said
days, basically, if your client has no interest in the property, we can terminate the agreement of purchase and sale. Effectively, the agreement of purchase and sale is quote unquote terminated if your client does not close, but your client still has a right of redemption. That means even if the vendors go ahead and find a buyer by next business day, if your client has the money and is ready to close, it goes to them first.
Okay.
That's what it is.
So after 7 days, they automatically forfeit the deposit and also.
Yes, well, no, forfeiting deposit is different because
Oh.
forfeiting deposit has to be unilaterally agreed. That's why it gets to litigation sometimes when purchasers and vendors do not agree to release the deposit. That's something else. That's a clause that you will see. But legal terms is different. In any event, if a deal is not closed and no extension is granted, your client still has the right to redeem the property. If that right is not exercised, then yes, the agreement of purchase and sale is terminated. Yeah.
So builder can still forfeit the deposit even if they have been able to sell the property for the same or higher price. than what
The
they sold for.
deposit does not form part of damages. So when you buy a house, you put, let's say, $50,000 as a deposit. And your client's not able to close. That $50,000, according to courts, is not gonna form part of the damages that the person's gonna sue for. Let's say the damages are $100,000. Doesn't mean that because they got $50,000, then their damages are gonna be reduced to 50. Deposit is completely separate. Now, sometimes some courts do deem it when damages are not significant, but we've had instances where my clients, they sold, they were purchasing, and the property they were purchasing, those people had also sold and purchasing. So those damages you can see are egregious. In that case, the court is gonna be a little bit easygoing with the deposit not being part of the damages. But if your client is elderly, they were selling to go live in a different home, then really what are your damages, right?
So in any case, if the damages are less than the deposit that they have paid, I mean, I'm trying to understand, is there any scenario where the buyer, the original purchaser unable to close, is forfeiting the property, will get back the deposit or any form of.
The deposit has to be agreed upon to be given back to the purchaser.
In the agreement.
No, it has to be agreed by the realtors. Because remember, sometimes when clients are not able to close, so we always tell them, just consider your deposit lost.
Mhm.
And then you're gonna be hit with lawsuits. Realtors can sue if you don't close.
Okay.
Yes, there's a contract that you sign, they can sue for their commission.
Okay.
Obviously lawyers, the bottom of the barrel, like they're not probably gonna do anything at that point. But then you also have vendors suing for, cost of living, like I hired movers, I put a deposit somewhere else, I bought plane tickets to go to Bahamas after the closing, those sort of things. So that's what we tell the purchasers, that these are the sort of things you have to anticipate if you do decide to not close.
So I have one question about title insurance.
Oh, yes, please.
So title insurance, we see there's a something 400, 600, 800. How we can tell the client that approximately what is the the cost of title insurance?
So it depends on the type of mortgage you're getting,
Okay,
the value of the property,
okay,
and the value of the mortgage.
all right.
So, for instance, a refinance, hypothetically, of $700,000
Mhm.
with, let's say, BMO,
Mhm.
is gonna be about 174.
Okay,
I go with Stewart.
Mhm.
Not that there's a difference. I've started with Stewart, so I continue with them. FCT is the most expensive one, FYI, you know, and Chicago is the slowest one. So Stewart is the most reasonable. Now, on a purchase where it's, let's say, a $3 million property, mortgage is 2.2 hypothetically, and let's say the mortgage is at RBC, you're looking at about $3,000. I would advise you to advise your clients, if they start asking about title insurance, to have them request a bill from the client. Because sometimes title insurance is something that an estimate is provided by lawyers, which I advise against. So if your client starts saying, oh my God, the lawyer is saying $2,500, ask them to ask for the bill. It's their right. They're paying for it.
all right.
Private mortgages, like $200,000, $300,000, private mortgages as second priority, you're looking at about $500-600.
I understand it's more
Yeah.
higher risk, or maybe lots of frauds happen in private.
Oh, yes,
So that's why it's high.
yes.
So,
And what should be taken care of when you're discharging the private mortgage when there's already a lender providing the first mortgage?
What do you mean by that?
You a purchaser purchase the property, like you mentioned, they used a private mortgage
Yeah.
for the down payment, and you got a parcel like scenario you mentioned before, and okay, the user want to discharge.
Client has purchased a property, they have a second mortgage, private, and then they want to pay it off and discharge it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so the most cost-effective way for your client to do that is to go to the lawyer that registered the private and have them request for a payout statement from the lender. Now, sometimes the client might have a relationship with the lender. They might be sending e-transfers, they might be sending, etc., insurance binders periodically. Just have them ask for the lender to send a payout statement to their lawyer. Your client will deposit the money into the lawyer's trust account. They'll get the discharge, and your client will get a copy. Yeah.
a question for the second mortgages, for example, if the title insurance is important in it.
Title
The title insurance is must basically recommended.
100%.
Okay.
100%. There is a policy that as lawyers, we are not supposed to do any sort of mortgage transactions if title insurance is not ordered or refused by the clients.
Okay.
The reason for that is because of the fraud that has happened. Unfortunately, we are living in a time where there's been a lot of real estate fraud perpetuated by lawyers, I'm not gonna lie. So we are very vigilant. Now, I've had instances where the loan was 50,000. The borrower, the lender were cousins, were relatives. In that case, if the lender is insisting on no title insurance, then they would have to sign a disclaimer that
Understood.
no risks are covered. But if we're talking about anything over, I would say 75,000, it's a must.
Anyhow, there will be two lawyers.
2 lawyers, exactly. It is a must because it's really gonna protect the lawyer in instances of fraud, which we've seen. Have you guys encountered NOSI's notice of securities, by the way? Notice of security interest, Reliance, Crown Crest, Snap? No?
Or it's, sorry, say it again?
Notices of securities of interest?
We
Crown
have
Crest?
a couple of deals for that.
Yeah?
Which company was that? Reliance, you said it, right?
Reliance?
Yeah. So postponement.
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
okay, so good news.
Yeah.
If any lawyer says, oh my God, there's Reliance, we need a postponement, tell the lawyer you don't, because the regulations have changed and we can discharge them without paying for postponements, without paying out any
We
payouts.
recently had that in Tisan's case.
Yeah, in one of the clients' case.
Just make sure you tell your
Yeah.
clients that they are not to pay anything for, even Reliance used to charge $220. Make sure you tell your clients that now they get this charge for free. I mean, they'll still be responsible for monthly payments,
Yes.
You should have told
But
us
sometimes with
earlier.
the one AC and the $30,000 on it.
And sometimes they would refuse postponements.
Yes.
They would say we need to get paid
They
out.
did
So
to our
now
client.
You should have told
He
us
was,
earlier.
it came last week.
last week.
Last week,
after
so-
Sorry, man, last month you told me.
You know what? See if your client can get the money back from the company.
That's the final.
So can we get more details on that?
Okay,
I don't know
like
about
we
that.
have hot water tank.
Mhm.
So that's on lease. So let's say if the client is moving the mortgage, so sometimes the lender used to say, okay, there is a lien on that property. It needs to be discharged. Okay, so now it's not required.
So those
Okay.
were chattels that are fixed to the property and your client has now paid in full for them. So they've registered something and then they charge your client monthly. Because of, again, all the recent frauds due to real estate lawyers, the regulation has changed and notices are no longer allowed to be registered.
Mhm.
Previously, up until last week, if let's say we saw Reliance, Crown Crest, Snap Financial,
Vault.
Eco something,
The word is entered there. Yeah.
sometimes I would even see Enercare, like all of those things, we are to discharge them. Previously, we had to write to those companies, which on its own was a pain
Mhm.
because it's almost impossible to find someone to speak to you in
Yes,
those companies,
exactly.
right? That would delay closings. Going back to your point, like
And she's,
that
Yeah.
used to delay closings because
Yeah,
the lawyer would say, "I cannot
It
get a
is,
hold of
it
them."
is, it is.
So now instead, and then back then when we would get in touch with them, once they decide to respond, they would send us either a postponement fee that we're gonna charge $220, whatever, 200 something
Every day.
to remove
Yeah.
and then re-register, or they would send a payout. That we cannot do postponements, there's no equity left in the property, we need to get paid. In that case, your client would have to pay, but now we are to discharge, whatever we see, we pay, we don't pay, we just discharge.
Discharge and then.
And the client will pay off the.
The client will individually pay off,
Yeah.
but there is gonna be no more lien
property.
registered on the client's property for that chattel.
Okay.
So in your case, the client has to pay 80% of that, and he
Yes.
recently got it.
Yes.
So that AC and a furnace cost him maybe 3 times.
Yeah,
They said, okay, no, because the clients make the late payments,
Mhm.
if the client is paying 80% of that,
Then
Look
you
at that.
postpone it.
and I was calling to cancel my account with Reliance every time the lady pick up, and she said, I'll call you back. All right, it's 3 months I'm paying it, and after
Why-
that I said, one thing, write down my phone number. If the phone disconnect, call me back.
yeah,
And this is my last call. I was really mad on them. I want to get that canceled. So
yeah,
they charge $100 for cancellation too. on top.
yeah.
Even after your contract is finished, then also they
15
charge.
years I was having it from builder. I bought from builder 15 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It happened in my Bolton house as well. So I called them. So it was for the furnace. So it was already paid off. I said, if it is paid off, then why I'm paying every month? Okay, so cancel this. So for cancellation, they charge $150.
Wow. Yeah. So yeah, that's something to definitely let your clients know, and I'm sorry
It's
about your
okay.
client.
And one thing I always would like to suggest, any deal you send, right? Ask the lawyer office what the documents need from the
Yes.
right? So any documents need from the client, tell the client to send it. And sometimes the client doesn't know, especially the refinance, the lawyer office has to order a payout statement.
Yes.
So always get a mortgage balance statement,
Yes.
first, second, third, all mortgages with their mortgage number that they can order the payout.
Yeah.
Also, the latest property tax statement you need to send.
Yes. And in terms of IDs, I understand you guys would have to take IDs from your clients, but try to collect driver's license, front and back, and passport. If they don't have passport, PR card, or proof of citizenship, that would save a lot of time because then you can have your file ready and you can sort of just help the lawyer speed things along. But mortgage statements are a key because some banks do not send you a payout unless you have the mortgage number. TD is one of those. Other than that, property tax bills, yes, they save not only money, but they save time. Because if a lawyer doesn't have the most recent property tax bill, they have to order a tax certificate. You're looking at $80, $90 that you're gonna save your client. And if your client doesn't have the bill, their mortgage pays for it, have them go to the city and get it.
Yeah.
It's gonna be free versus the lawyer charging.
Mhm.
So those things are
The more
definitely,
work you give to the lawyer, the more
The more
you pay.
Definitely,
Yeah.
actually, we have everything.
Yeah.
We have all the documents,
And
we
you-
just need to make a package.
yes,
send
and you know what it is, because I feel in my experience, clients have an easier time sending documents to their broker
Yeah.
versus the lawyer. Because then the lawyer, I would be like, can I have your passport? Why? The broker already has my driver's license. So I think it's because they know you guys for longer, so they build a relationship versus us that they're gonna meet like 2 days before their closing and then never see again. Sorry?
One time.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of like, I think they're more friendlier with you guys than with us. So get all the documents, have them ready. And with the email that you send the lawyer saying, hey, I'm going to send you a file, you can send the client's email address, phone number. You can send those documents to the lawyer as well to save time, and the lawyer can open the file before even meeting the client. They have the file and they know what's what. That's what I would advise.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions? Anything? Well, if you do decide to refer any files or anything, just know that my fees are very reasonable. I do not overcharge. Like I was telling you, I never spend any money on advertisement. My work and my clients have only been through word of mouth. I tend to really treat each file like it's my own. So I do work really hard. I do have another lawyer as well in my office when it comes for ILAs or ILRs. So we do it in-house, or sometimes private mortgages, 2 lawyers are required, or purchase and sales, 2 lawyers are required. I have another lawyer that can also assist. Other than that, if you have any questions, please feel free to call. I don't charge for consultation.
Thank you so much.
So feel free to reach out. Okay, I have my business cards right here, and it was very nice meeting all of
Same here.
you.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate
And
it.
thank
My
you.
pleasure.
Thank you very much for giving time. So you are the first lawyer actually having that
Aw,
presentation today.
thank you.
Yeah, but we were thinking for a long time. But thank you for.
It's my pleasure. And again, anything comes to mind, please feel free to reach out. You can text the number that's on my business card. Just text me your name and we'll chat.
How far is your office?
I'm at Shepherd and Bathurst.
Okay.
However, we do about 80% remote. Zoom, DocuSign, so
Clients don't need to come to your office.
not
so
if they
I guess-
want. If they want to, then yes. If they don't want to, we're okay. And the thing with Zoom is we could actually do after work. So you have clients that get home at 6, 7. So we do the meeting at 6 or 7.
Great.
Yeah.
Usually what I ask for the trust